Welcome to the Real View podcast, where Ohio Realtors connect you to innovators and influencers, keeping you with the real view of real estate. Whether you're a broker, agent, first-time homebuyer, industry leader, or just happen to stumble upon our podcast today, you can expect to hear tips, tools, tricks, interesting information, and so much more from the experts in Ohio's real estate game. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Real View podcast. I am your host, Allison Wiley. Joining me today, we are continuing our feature with our CE speakers at the annual convention and expo. So I'm super excited to be welcoming on one of our virtual CE speakers, Pam Ermen. She is a realtor, author, instructor, and trainer at Real Estate Guidance, Inc. She began her full-time real estate career at 18, quickly achieving an award-winning sales record by 20 and transitioning to management by 24. Over 4 decades, she has mastered all of the facets of real estate, managing over 25,000 transactions and owning 28 properties at her investment peak. Pam has coached numerous agents and teams to peak productivity, including growing a new office to 168 agents. Her expertise has made her a sought-after speaker and trainer both nationally and internationally, and that's why we've hired her to come bring her knowledge to us here in Ohio. Returning to sales in 2018, Pam's extensive experience in management, sales, and leadership makes her an exceptional instructor and keynote speaker. She has succeeded in both private and franchise business models, authored 2 real estate training series, and was named Virginia's Real Estate Educator of the Year. As president of Real Estate Guidance, Inc., she continues to provide coaching and training. Pam, welcome onto the show. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you, Allison. I'm really excited to be here. I'm glad to be back with Ohio.
And we're so happy to have you. It's always a pleasure when we get to have our repeat speakers join us. And you are beloved by the realtor community, and that's why you are going to be joining us for this year's convention and expo virtually. So we're so happy to have you. So happy to learn a little bit more about you and preview some of the stuff you have in store for us in September. But before we get started in that, I would like to hear a little bit more about you. Could you tell us about yourself and how you got started in real estate?
Yeah, my gosh, when I think about that, I came in literally at 18 years old. I took the test and I was 18 and started my career. I almost hate to admit it, but 40 years plus ago. And I've been in full time ever since. And I've never known another job. I've never known another career. And I did start into management in probably my early 20s is when it really started. So it's just been a great career. I mean, it has been just this amazing couple of decades of really enjoying what I do. And it's evolved from not just doing it for myself, but then working with other agents and then coaching other agents. And I've even had the opportunity a number of times now to work with companies, which has been really cool.
That's awesome. And I love to see your progression of your career, that you've been able to, be around this industry for so long. You have so much knowledge and experience, and you're so willing to share it, with our realtors. And I think that's, the beauty of our industry and of, being a realtor, is that there are people like you who are so willing to share their story and their knowledge to make each other better. So that's really exciting. Talk to us a little bit about your instructing and training courses and, winning the Real Estate Educator of the Year. Talk to us a little bit about your passion behind that and why that's something that you wanted to pursue.
Well, I just found that when I went into management, that one of the things that I really found myself really enjoying was the training side of things, that kind of opening up their head and pouring in, right? You wanted to replicate what you felt like you knew, and that you knew if they were doing it would make them successful, would take them to the next level. And so the more that I did that, a couple of other doors opened up, and I actually started with the GRI program in Virginia and went from there to the GRI program in North Carolina. That opened the doors for teaching for CRS, and had just an amazing experience with CRS. I always said it was like going to the Harvard Business School of training. I mean, they dunked you in the deep end, and they really made sure you knew what you were doing, dotting the I's, crossing the T's before they put you in front of somebody. And so I had that, and that led to just meeting people all around the country, that obviously led to meeting companies and agents, and that opened the door to working one-on-one with coaching clients around the country at all kinds of different levels. It opened the door again to me doing a team series because I really found that transition, that ability to expand is really what we call the team model. A lot of people, if you ask them again if they're interested in growth, or excuse me, they're interested in teams. They're not always interested in teams, but if you ask them if they're interested in growth, everybody's interested in growth. And the reality is the team quote, term is really it's just the growth vehicle in real estate, expanding the labor load and doing it with a group of individuals that are like-minded, taking everything to the next level. So I've just had just this amazing process that we've gone through. And one of the most rewarding things is to be able to be not only in my area, but to go into other areas and be face to face and belly to belly with those people that are out there every day, taking their job seriously when they walk in the door and they handle business for a buyer or seller. I mean, no, it's not life or death, but they say that move that people go through is one of the highest stressed situations they're going to experience. So when we walk in the door, what we do is important. It matters that it's not self-serving. It matters that we care about them. And I think I've always had that one mentality, whether it was management, whether it was sales, whether it was training, is that if you take care of the client, the commission follows. If you take care of them first, everything else, the reward follows. But it's about them first.
I love that approach. That was said so beautifully. And I agree with you. I mean, I think anyone who has moved, even personally, if you've ever gone through the moving process and, we are talking to realtors who do this for a living, it's stressful when especially when you're doing it yourself. So I think we can all agree with that.
Well, and there's one thing that's so funny because you all have a beloved individual that's from Ohio. That's one of my favorite people in the entire world, Jackie Leavenworth. And she used to always say that the best CE that we could ever require an agent to go through is to sell a house every 3 years. Buy and sell a house every 3 years and know what it's like to be on the other side of that fence. And, just the compassion that we'd have for an individual when we went to work would be totally different.
That's so true because, that perspective, it's a great way to gain that perspective. And once you see it from that other side, it just helps you gain that compassion. It helps you kind of put yourself in their shoes and understand, I remember what it was going through, what that was like when I was going through it.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's an awesome idea. I love that. And so you've taken this amazing approach and really have built up, your education and your teaching and have given back, so much to our industry. And we appreciate that. And, all that you have to share with us. I know you're always, a hot ticket anytime we bring you on. So, you're very loved here in Ohio, and we appreciate the time we get to spend with you. Talk to us a little bit about kind of your approach with teaching and how you run your classes for maybe like our newer agents who maybe have never been to one of your classes or this is their first time, coming to convention. What can they expect from one of your classes? How do you teach? Talk to us kind of about your mentality and your approach to how you run your courses.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just so important that whatever you're communicating, they should be able to walk out tomorrow and apply it. It doesn't do me any good to educate somebody if I don't empower them to go use it, right? So it's not just about coming in and dumping an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours of information. It's how does that information move from that to an engagement so that they are literally walking out into the marketplace better equipped to take care of the buyer and the seller. And, one of the things, again, just going through all of those places that I had the privilege of teaching with, whether it was GRI or CRS or any of the other places, just some of the cadres that I've been on, that, we've learned to vary the presentation, that you can't just walk in and just talk, lecture for the next 3 hours. There's got to be some realm of engaging them. And one of the things that I can remember being taught so long ago at CRS is they used to say, how are you going to measure that they got it? How do you validate that they got it? And that put a different responsibility on you as a teacher, or a trainer, whatever it was. Is that I can't just come and dump How am I going to then validate that that group got it? And I can remember another one of the wonderful, trainers that I was with that used to say, Pam, when you have their head, you have their mind. When you have their eyes, you have their heart. And I can remember that sense of looking, and I can say and talk and give you knowledge, but if they always have their head down writing, which is a good sign because they're taking something in, but every now and then, boy, you've got to hit them in a way that they stop and they're really paying attention, something engaged. And so I'm always looking for that kind of an impact in the room to leave them better than I found them. And if I can't do that, then, it's kind of like I used to say when I was in management, either I'm the best place to be or I'm not. And if I'm not, I should be helping them pack the bags and go on. If I'm not the best person in that room to be there, then they should have hired somebody else. I should leave them better than I found them.
I love that. And I think you absolutely do that. And I hope those who are going to be attending, your session here in a couple weeks will feel that same way. And I know that they will, because that's why we're having you back. And that's why we always want you to come share your knowledge and in your presentations with us, because you do a great job of making us better after we walk out of your classes. And you mentioned something too about, giving our members tools that they can walk out with and implement right away. And I think that's what's really great about you and about so many of our presenters that we have joining us, is that you guys are giving such practical advice. You're so invested and involved and have such a good pulse on the industry, where it's going, that you're in their shoes. We just talked a minute ago about being in their shoes. So you're going to be able to say, like, listen, I know what you're going through. I'm not some keynote or flying, has no idea about real estate or whatever. You practice this, you practice what you preach. You're coming into this knowing the reality of what doing real estate in today's market is, and you're going to give people those tools in order to implement that as soon as they leave our convention and get back home.
Yeah. And that is so unbelievably important. In fact, I have stayed in real estate practicing it because I am out there teaching it. And I'll be darned if I'm going to walk into a room and try and empower somebody with 6-month-old content, or a year-old content. This business is changing so quickly. It is morphing every 24 hours, it feels like, that if you try and apply something you knew a year ago, it's old news. So what happened to you yesterday? And if you're not in that marketplace, if you're not talking to that buyer, that seller, or if you're not a manager who is constantly clearing that desk with issues that your people are in front of, it's really hard to walk in and think you've got credibility.
It's so true. And, I think our members know that, and they're going to be able to tell, hey, this is someone who knows what they're talking about, who's super involved, who's, keeping a good pulse on what's going on in the industry, versus someone who, like, you could tell, like, they haven't done a transaction in, X amount of years. I think it's
the last time you sold something, buddy, right? Right.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And that's what makes it so great, and why you have such a good perspective that I think you're going to share with us. And speaking of the market and where it is right now, your session is going to be all focused on attracting more business and how to do it right now. From your perspective, and as we just talked about, you being so involved in the industry and knowing what's going on, what is the vibes around the industry? What are you seeing? What are your clients seeing? What are realtors that you're engaging with on a regular basis, whether it's through your teaching, whether it's through everyday business? What are you hearing and experiencing and seeing?
And that's such an interesting question, because again, I really am just so privileged to be engaged with individuals around the country. So it's not just my little microcosm where I live and I work, because there are some common denominators, absolutely, when you go into different markets, but there's also other places that are really functioning differently than someplace else is. And so, you realize how important it is to truly, as we've heard before, how truly important it is to understand hyper local factors. You've got to know your market more than ever. And I think that's one of the things that we'll be talking about when it comes into the 10 ways to attract businesses. It's almost broken up into two things. One part is going to be creating business strategies, business development, really tangible ideas for doing that. The flip side of that, the other side of where we'll spend our time, is really kind of business practices and mindsets, because we have people that have been programmed for the same skill sets and the same mindsets for 10, 12 years. We had a market, regardless almost of where you were in the country, that it was functioning the same way over and over again. And it was literally getting more intense as we went, but on the same side. And so they learned certain skill sets that almost became, again, almost second nature. It was like autopilot, turn it on and go. And then all of a sudden, the market has shifted, and it shifted in so many different ways. It's not that we all of a sudden have the buyers totally in control, but there's enough shift that in certain places, or maybe certain geographical locations, or certain price points or types of properties, whatever it happens to be, there are factors that can change whether you've got one party seriously in the driver's seat, another one seriously in the driver's seat, or kind of back to that negotiating aspect of give and take. And you have to know the difference. I mean, we have markets around the country. I've got clients right now that tomorrow they'll walk into an appointment and they'll still be in a multiple offer scenario. And next week they walk into a different neighborhood and, they've got a listing that they just took and it's been on the market for 24 days, right? And it's not sold yet. You have to know how to shift skill sets at this point. And that's one of the things that will be kind of on that side of business practices and mindset. How are you going to be prepared to shift these skill sets to be best prepared to represent your client?
Yeah, no, that's going to be fascinating to hear, especially knowing the current climate of where our market stands today. Being able to easily, you almost have to be like a shapeshifter. You know what I mean? Like you have to be able to kind of work in all those situations, and oftentimes like the example you just gave, where it is going to be so different, and you have to be able to do that, and know how to help your clients do that, because they're probably feeling like crazy whiplash too. And I'm sure you're going to be able to share ways to help yourself, switch between those two, but also ways to help your clients deal with that. Because I think that's so much of what realtors deal with is just how to manage their clients' emotions and how to make them feel comfortable in something that one, there's very foreign. Most people aren't buying and selling homes regularly. But also helping them feel comfortable and knowing how to navigate, both of those examples that you just gave. I think that's going to be fascinating to hear.
And you just used the term when you said manage their emotions. That's exactly one of the things. I've got a class called Managing Seller Expectations, or Managing Your Clients' Expectations, is how are you going to do that? When you walk in the door, do you set the expectation right up front? Do they know what's going to happen? Do they know what happens next if what they anticipating occurring doesn't occur, right? You've got to be the person more than ever. You've got to legitimately be a trusted advisor that is walking them through the process, because it's no longer the predictable process they think it is.
Yes, that's so true. And learning how to anticipate that too, I think is really important. I think that saves so much time on the front end if you can kind of be prepared for some of those things. Know, kind of, hey, this is a situation I'm familiar with. This is kind of what I've dealt with before. Learning from people like you who have been through it, you can probably share from your own experiences, which is going to be really cool to hear. I mean, I'm sure you're going to have some personal experiences to share with us of ways that you've navigated it, of ways you've seen your mentors navigate it. And just that passing along of knowledge is just so important and so cool. One of the things I love about, when we're able to have our conventions and seeing that exchange of knowledge, it always makes me smile.
Yes, me too.
If you had to give advice to someone coming to your session, someone coming to the convention as a whole, what would your best of advice be for those people who are going to be joining us in a couple weeks?
I think we get to the point where, again, I used to call it the Groundhog Day experience. We recycle the same year over and over again. And you just can't do that anymore. I mean, one of the things, again, that we're talking about, one of the 10 ways when we talk about attracting business is one of the ones that I refer to is called learn a new language. We've got AI coming in. And my gosh, we could teach AI classes for like 24 hours a day for the next probably year and not hit everything. The agents don't need that much. They need practical application of what does this mean to my career? And part of that is you have to start at the basics and you have to start making the commitment to learn that new language. And when I saw it coming at us, I just made the basic commitment myself of, I'm going to go online, I'm going to find somebody who is talking about AI that's in the real estate lane, and I'm going to listen to it. And I'm going to listen to it again tomorrow, and I'm going to listen to somebody else the next day, until month after month, you're starting to accumulate enough of the sound of that language that you're starting to put pieces into the puzzle. You can't just say, oh yeah, I think I'm going to, apply AI to my business, when it literally is a new language. So that's one of the things, is that you've got to be ready to turn off autopilot, and you've got to walk in and avoid that Groundhog Day experience of just replicating the same year over and over again, and starting to think, what do I have to do now that's going to best position me to be successful by, as I close out 2025 and as I start going into 2026. And that also boils down to something else. I like the timing of what we have when it comes to me being with them for the convention, because one of the other things that I talk about is understanding that you've got to have a true business plan. And people think they have a business plan. The reality is, calculating some numbers and having somebody say, what do you think you want to make next year, is not a business plan. So often when I'm digging in, and I do that a lot because of my coaching clients, like if I'm getting somebody, they're brand new in front of me, the first thing I've got to do is take a read of what the business looks like to date, so that I understand what's been their norms and how do we dig for untapped potential. How am I looking for patterns that have become something they're recycling, but again, it's just repeating the same thing over and over again. And one of the principles that we deal with is that you have to be physically in this quarter and mentally in next at all times. Because when you're physically and mentally in the same quarter, you have no time to fix anything. And in a market where daily you can have factors coming at you, you better be walking out what you've already put in place and already planning for what's coming at you, so that you're always in control of the outcome in a market that's consistently changing. Another thing that I'll refer to, and they'll probably hear it when they see me in front of them, or actually that's, when we're on the video or the webinar, is that they used to talk about the idea that Wayne Gretzky would say that you have to skate to where the puck is going to be. Well, that's what you have to do now. You've got to read the market. You've got to read the client. You've got to read the neighborhoods. You've got to read pricing. And then you have to skate to where the puck's going to be. You've got to plan for the future aspect of where you are, not just the present aspect of where you are. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of practical that, we've talked about it today, just almost in a mindset and almost a little bit more of a fuzzy math type scenario. We have to drill in, and I've got that 3 hours to do that when I have them in front of me on our session.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. I love that metaphor. That's such a fun way to think about it. I'm going to think about that all the time. And it's anticipation, right? It's anticipating, yes, the market. It's anticipating, what's going to be next. It's anticipating, like you mentioned, the pricing, the neighborhoods, all of that good stuff. And I think so much of that, so many of those skills you're able to learn through coming to sessions like yours, through joining us at a convention, and especially in a market that, what you just explained is changing so quickly. Yes. Now is the perfect time to take aside these couple days to dedicate to yourself, to learn these tools and skills to be able to skate to where the puck is. I think that so beautiful and such a great metaphor. And we're looking forward to it, Pam. We can't wait to see you in a couple of weeks. It's going to be so much fun.
Well, and just to throw something else out really quick, Allison, it's something as simple as staging. Staging is nothing new, right?
Yeah.
But in a market where you're trying to obtain top dollar and you can no longer just rely on the fact that you put it on the market, that you had 82 people interested and they bought it, then how are you going to bring your value to the table? How are you going to prepare that home for top dollar? And I just recorded something that was a little reel that we put out that said, you don't sell a home the same way you live in it. And people don't pay top dollar for reality. It's our job to merchandise that property, to walk in and figure out what we can do with that property to ensure that we've done everything possible to get that seller top dollar. And in a market also where we're going to be on the market a little bit longer, staging is even more important. And that can sometimes be difficult for an agent because some of them are paying for staging, right?
Yeah.
They're not doing it themselves. And now all of a sudden you pay for staging. And if you're being charged on a 30-day period, all of a sudden you might be having to budget for something more extensive than you're used to if you've done it in the past.
Yeah.
And so what are your solutions for that? How much stronger are you about controlling expectations up front so that you're not having an extended market time solely because you didn't do the job up front, right?
Yeah.
So all of those things change your skill sets again in the business that we're in.
Yep. And all of those are good to get refreshers on, to be sharpening up skills. You know what I mean? This is such a great time to do that. And critical if you want to stay ahead of the game. And that's what you're going to teach us and how we get more business, especially going through market as we are going through. So we're looking forward to it, Pam. We can't wait to have you in a couple weeks. Thanks so much for joining me on today's show and for allowing us to get to know you a little bit better and sharing with us what we can expect with you in a few weeks. We can't wait to see you.
Well, I'm looking forward to being there. We've got a lot more coming. So I'll look forward to having everybody join us. I hope we have a nice full class and we'll make the most of it.
Absolutely. And to all you guys listening, we can't wait to see you at the convention and expo September 15th to 17th, plus extra CE classes after the in-person convention has ended with Pam and a few other amazing speakers. We can't wait to see you there. Pam, thanks again so much for joining us. And to all of our listeners, thanks again, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye, Allison.
Thank you for listening to The Real View. That wraps up today's episode. You can keep up with the latest on the podcast at ohiorealtors.org/therealview and on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Have questions, comments, or suggestions? We want to hear from you. Email us at podcast@ohiorealtors.org. We'll see you next time.